Hello, our dear friends. This is Lori with Tug of Heart. I'm here with my twinner, Leroy, and today we are talking about death cleaning or Swedish death cleaning. So, Leroy, I came up with this idea because it is spring cleaning time. And I was thinking, well, what about spring cleaning with the heart? I have my little checklist for spring cleaning. And it's nice to always spring clean because you get to have a new look at things. You get to air things out, get that fresh air, and you start to feel just more alive. Well, from there, in like a very brief conversation with you, somehow things became a little bit more stretched beyond that. And we were talking about, I think actually Joanne, Leroy's wife, had given me this idea to talk about Swedish death cleaning. I had told her about this a few years back. It's also called dostadning. And basically, it's decluttering your house and just getting ready to have less things in your later years. The idea being that should you pass, you don't want to leave a whole lot of clutter or a whole lot of, I guess, baggage and emotional stuff for those that remain after you to have to sort through. So, what I was hoping to talk about today, Leroy, if you are, is how we could kind of lay this template over taking a look at the heart and see if this could make some kind of sense in terms of the heart. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Been in a little bit of discomfort for the last couple of days, but I'm okay. I'm good. Got to shift my perspective.
That's what I was just.
So let's focus on good things. The good things are I'm here. Thank you for including me. Dostading.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's that. It sounds a lot more romantic than I think it really is.
Well, I think it is. I think it is when you depends on
There's
your
a
relationship with death, right?
there's a certain amount of comfort we get from things that have continue to and we hope will in the future enrich our lives, but that's not necessarily something that a future generation would want to deal with.
Right.
So for me, it's a little bit different. Never had just a whole bunch of stuff in my life. So the things that I have are generally heirloom goods, and that doesn't matter if it's some Filson tin cloth pants and jacket, or luggage, or just the things that are important for me for transporting and staying safe from the elements. They mean different things, but to a future recipient of these goods upon my passing, they're gonna look at it and be like, what? And they're gonna throw that stuff out, not knowing the legacy contained.
Right. Well, I feel like a big part that I play in your life is that I'm able to help in that situation because I alleviate you a lot of these things. Like if I have a need or want, I can be like, what's the best leather blah blah to get? Knowing you may have it and you may need to do a little Swedish death cleaning, and I'm going to have an heirloom in the mail. Um,
In kind, when I was up at your house, I just started taking stuff to the dump, I remember. And you're like, not that, and I'm like, no, yes,
I'm I'm
that.
I'm one that has a hard time. I'm very good at letting go of things, believe it or not, but what I'm not good at is determining what I need and what I don't need. Like I can't tell like for example, if I'm going to do a project or something, I wouldn't be very good at making a clear concise list. I don't know what to pack for a trip, things like that. But now bringing it to the heart, I wanted to try to think about today, and me and you are working this out on the fly. So we're going to have this double exercise: one of processing it, two of trying to be concise enough to carry a logical conversation about it for others. What do you think about the heart and kind of cleaning things out? And so, in this sense, I mean the heart and all the faculties that it's responsible for. So, our thoughts, our physicality, the things that better serve the desires of the heart. How would we even begin to approach this thing of releasing what we don't need? Number one, what's not useful or even hindering, maybe counterproductive. How do we make a list?
How about we just start with like things that are just very concrete? Grudges and vindictive behavior. Let's purge those out. Right, out. So those are real easy. Can we, but again, easier said than done.
Wait, I'm gonna corner you on this.
I like that. So what I want to say is it's easier said than done, because part of our education to keep us safe in the future is to kind of hold on to that, remember it. Right. So when we say, let go of a grudge, well, letting go of a grudge that's great. I think it sounds great, but that grudge is somewhat of a mechanical preservation technique, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to go through that experience again. So we hold a grudge to kind of put some distance. Now, should we look back and like re-inventory our list? Because maybe the people change, maybe the people grew up, maybe we grew up, maybe it's not as important as it used to be. But remember, I mean, it's kind of a little dicey, because to let go is to open yourself up again, I would think, in a little bit. Like, to truly not have a grudge, like, listen, this person lit my car on fire, and I held a grudge for a long time. I'm gonna let that go. Now they come back into my life, and I'm really gonna feel like a dunce if they light my car on fire a second time.
Okay, so
not speaking from experience. Chopped it up with an axe, different story.
So what if you're holding on to a grudge and there's a certain weight to holding it day after day that's at some point going to surpass even the loss of another car or two?
Okay, so
because when we're talking about the heart, we're talking about you. And so to hold something, is it worth a daily strike on yourself to keep this in your heart as a protective mechanism? And you don't have to answer that, but maybe that's something we could ask ourselves for certain grudges. I don't have a very good memory for grudges, because sometimes, I'll tell you the truth, I've actually like run into somebody who or people repeatedly who really just did me dirty. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be angry. And then I'm like chatting away for some time. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Whoa, I forgot I'm upset. I've done this with Steve. He comes home and I'm so excited. I'm like, oh, and then and then I'm gonna do, and today we did that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not talking to you. I can't even remember to
Lori, listen, if Joanne ever joins us on this podcast, there's going to be so revealing, because I'm going to tell you something I overheard her saying. What? This is like yesterday. And she's talking to her friend, and she's like, yeah, I don't know what they were saying. They were just having a casual conversation about maybe bad husbands or something, I'm trying to think about how I was in that. And she says, the problem is that I will be upset with Leroy, and I'm kind of like just taking a breather, just not as an interactive, I'll still feed him, he's my custodial caregiver. Sustain life. I'll still feed the guy, but she says, the problem is I could go for like 3 days or 2 days with limited contact, and and he forgot why I was mad at him 30 minutes later. So he's just like, well, I better still steer clear of this cat because, you know, it's not good. You know, it's like, there's a wet kitten right there. Not going to go through it. But so, you know, I mean, I guess I do release to a certain extent. I release myself of liability.
You're good about forgetting those, but not, but you're remembering those grudges.
100%.
So let me say this. If you can forget that somebody's begrudging you, I'd say you can clean out some grudges.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because maybe they don't even know what they've done. And you're keeping people at arm's length. Like you're re-inflicting yourself and they don't even know what's gone on.
I don't think I'm so quick to hold a grudge, but as the older I get, I definitely find out that I'm smarter about amputating toxic individuals.
Yeah. Well, that's moving on because you're going in a different direction. That's my exciting thing is if we're really just not going the same way, or if we're causing one another damage to the heart, then it's not good to pursue things. I want to bring it back to this idea of Swedish death cleaning. I am going to say this. If you have a grudge, and we're talking about the heart, maybe cleaning it just means to address it with a person, even if it's in an honest way where you say, man, you lit my car on fire. Come on. You can't do that. It made me feel bad, but I've grown so much since then that my concern now is also the damage you do to yourself when you behave like this. I don't want this for you. So when we're talking about death cleaning, it's something you should address now, because say you do pass and you left that business unfinished, you're leaving them holding something that is uncomfortable or that is just messy to deal with after you're gone. Right?
Yeah. You know,
so maybe just, and where it lands is outside of your control, but at least you've addressed it, because to me, that's unfinished business. And it's a very sad thing, I think, for people to be left with a lot of questions.
I don't know how my wife does it. I mean, let me tell you, my life is kind of like, yeah, you know, I always see things two ways. My wife, brilliant lady. Have you met her? She's brilliant.
Yeah, I like her.
She's brilliant because when something has run its course, a grudge, animus, she's just done. And she's like, yep, okay. But her ability to define a worthy amputation is just unbelievable. You know, I'm like, you know, give it a shot. You know, like, maybe they didn't mean it. I try to think for them. Maybe this is how they meant it. No, they meant it the way you thought they meant it. You know, sometimes, but she's just very clear. She's very calculating. I would hate to see the day that she didn't want to be my wife any longer, but I guarantee you she would have a good reason. You know, she's very clear.
She is, she's exact and exacting.
Yes. So okay. I don't know. You know, I mean, I think that there's got to be something more than just grudges.
Right.
I think definitely. Grudges, you know, I mean, that definitely hits home to the heart. But I think we're talking about grudges like where there's this exchange with the would-be perp, you know? But what about our own, you know, things in our heart that we need to let go for no other reason than we need to let go? Doesn't matter whether or not the recipient knows we let go.
That's right.
We just have to let go.
Amen. Because let me tell you this, a lot of grudges that I have held over the years, more when I was younger, a person did not even earn that grudge. It was more that I was put in a position of shame or embarrassment. And it was about, I felt about me. And so I never felt good about them. They did not deserve that grudge.
Stop where you're at. Stop where
It's
you're
just to
at.
be around them brought up that discomfort. So I was keeping them away because of that.
Stop where you're at. You told me a story one time. Like, I'll never forget this. You told me a story one time that, like, there was a situation where somebody, you had just kind of like defriended them in high school, and years had passed, and when you'd see them, you'd kind of like go a different way, and then you came up with this brilliant idea that you're like, listen, I'm gonna bury the hatchet, so to speak. Not bury the hatchet in them, but just I'm gonna let this go. And so you confronted them, whether it was at a social gathering, I don't remember. And so you confronted them, and you said they looked at you so bewildered, and they were like, "I did what?" And you had been carrying this, dodging them, and they were like, wait, I did. No, I didn't mean it. No, that's impossible. I would never do that to you. I love
I
you.
love you. I love you.
Yeah. Super funny. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're talking about these things where somebody didn't earn it, or this or that or the other. And here you were just months later or years later, I don't know. And you confronted them, and they were just like, I did what? Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I would never want to do that to you, Lori. Anyway,
So
go on.
maybe I think when you're saying that, we can extend past grudges to like also letting out of our heart, our mind, things that just don't hold up to reason, or things that are no longer rational.
Wow.
This
Give us an
person did this.
example. Mind blown.
Okay. An example is for me, and this is a memory I will have. It's almost with fondness now, but there was a time that it gave me like a certain feeling that wasn't fondness. In first grade, within the first month of school, we had a field trip. And our teacher said at the beginning of the field trip, they took us to a construction site. Clearly we were born in the 70s. So they took us to a construction site, and they gave us
a hammer.
The directive that there would be nails everywhere. Do not step on a nail. If you step on a nail, you will not be allowed to go to the skating trip at the end of the year. This is what they told us. We weren't, wow. we were not 45 seconds into the field trip, and I stepped on a nail through my foot like Jesus Christ, but without all the goodness of him. I stepped on a nail. Squish, 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 blood coming out. And I was not going to tell a person because I was not missing that trip. Fast forward about 3 weeks, and I am hobbling around. I cannot walk. Everywhere my socks are sticking to my feet. The blood has now turned into some weird yellow something coming out of my foot, and I told nobody. And I remember Mom was like, what are you doing? Why are you limping? I'm like, I'm not limping. And I'm like losing.
Nobody can see that.
I'm like a foot shorter when I step on that foot. It was now painful up to like my knee. They had to take me in. I almost lost my leg because I was not going to lose that skating trip. And so I had become incredibly infected by doing that. So I carried that, rightly so, because I'm like, at least until I was like 12, maybe in my teens, where I'm like, why would a teacher threaten you with skating? But at some point, that's not rational to carry that feeling about it anymore. It's not relevant. It's no longer relevant to my life, except that was the lesson was more how my foolishness than the nerve of the teacher to say that.
So while we're talking about Swedish death cleaning, this is like a practice that's very fluid as we go through our life and inventory our baggage, so to speak. And what baggage can we discard? Are we just hauling trash at a certain point, which is what you're telling me?
Yeah, just like, yeah.
Because we're not even carrying anything valid. It's
Or
got no.
Mary Kondo, does it give me joy to replay this in my mind? No. So get rid of it, right?
I always have a really hard time, that, just like purging, just like, yeah, get rid of
But
it.
I do think it's important to take a look at what's our practices that stem from the hearts, because and the reason I say that is because, like I said, you want to take into consideration your mind as well, and your body with this, because everything is connected. And in that sense, I think we have to purge sometimes things that don't serve us well. Do we have thoughts or ideas that we formed at a different time in our life, but now we somehow know better, or experience has told us otherwise, or it just doesn't serve our aim right now, or who we've luckily become despite these thoughts, but sometimes they still travel along? Should we let go? And that's not to say you just can physically toss it, but at least to acknowledge I don't need that may be a start.
So anything, do gotta put a bow on this, anything that does not have mental nutrition should be included in a mental bowel movement.
Yes.
Just waste. There's
It's
nothing nutritious to it. Yep. Launch it. Well, don't launch it. But all right, welcome back. Mental bowel movements. Okay.
I can't.
Lori, come back to me.
I can't, because
You're welcome.
My
I like what you're saying. I mean, I really do. I mean, and it sounds funny, so funny that it's hard for us to even catch our breath. But Lori, you're right. If there is no mental nutrition in something, it is literally time to can it. Get rid of it.
yes.
Because I mean, is it that simple? That's a whole new perspective. One I actually find some humor in, one I can probably participate with and exercise. But yeah, wow.
And and I don't think it's so far-fetched to say, listen, you and I are humans, and we also incidentally are a couple of borderline nutty humans. And I don't think it's far-fetched to enjoy it, lighten up, because you are lightening your load to the extent where if part of you don't know how you're going to get rid of something that doesn't nourish your heart or your mind, picture yourself launching it like a wild bowel movement. That's fine, because you have softened the image of it, because it doesn't hold the same seriousness it once held anymore. You've already changed you've redefined it into literal shit. That's what
you say softened. Let me ask you, do you have a mouse in your pocket?
Why?
You were talking about how you're nutty. You said we're nutty, and I'm like,
oh,
you're not talking about me.
You. Let's try to get it.
You're right, Lori. This actually turned out way better than I thought. That is, that's probably an oversimplification, but it works for me.
That's the thing, is just, why do we hold on to things that don't serve us well? It's habit, or just inattentiveness to take a look inside of us. And what it talks about is self-examination, and we can be very poor at it. It's hard to remember to do that.
So Lori, where is the mental Senecon? Where's the mental X-lax? Because we are, I mean, we have to admit to ourselves, first and foremost, that we got a little bit of mental constipation. I mean, this took a really funny turn, but so how do we, how do we kind of dissolve that, so to speak?
Okay. Well, the way that I approach any kind of, I guess, work on my thoughts is picture it like every once in a while, something stinks in the air. Maybe it was the gas of one of those things. Since we're going with this really horrible visual of all of this, and just be like, instead of just letting things pass. So a crappy thought enters your mind. Okay. And I've said this, I think something like it before. Leroy says something to me, and my first thought just happens. No judgment on myself for it. But when you say something, I think to myself, well, that's stupid. He's stupid. Now, it's okay that I had the thought. It just happened. I don't even know the origin. But one of the things we need to get in the habit of doing is have a look at the thought after we have it. So then I would ask myself, do I mean that? Does my experience with my twin really tell me that he is stupid, or was he just really silly to where it bordered on stupidity in this moment? And then by re-examining it, I hope you can hear what I'm saying, even though it's a very personal example. I'm trying to be funny, but by looking at it, I can be like, no, what I know of him is really not stupid. So that's a thought I can squash. And probably next time I wouldn't think it, because so the bigger point when I'm not being funny is somebody doesn't think like you and they say something, and the first thought that pops in your head is like, what an idiot. Or this group, look at this group, they're ruining America, they're so dumb. And people tend to start thinking like this, and we accumulate these unnecessary like little things of clutter that we don't need. And a lot of them are thoughts like that no, this is just what a person thinks. We don't need, and that's okay. We can just hear it like that's what they think. We don't need that extra. They're useless. Do I need that in my heart? No. The only part I need is, that doesn't hold to what I understand of life. That's okay. But do I need the extra judgment? Toss it, right?
Yeah.
Launch it.
I mean, no, you're right. You are correct. That is you know what? This is such a comical way to put it. I'm sitting here, I'm listening to you. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense. But isn't that the definition of purging, you know? I mean, it really is, but you know, maybe just for me only, this is what it takes, is a little bit of, there has to be some comedic value in it for me to want to even entertain it.
Right. Well,
But
and
it's
you
true.
don't, and it's in the same way that we become attached to our possessions, we become very attached to our thoughts. Remember, you had said, like, when we invest into arguing with somebody, now we really own that thought and it's more precious to us. We have to revisit some of those and be like, yeah, I dug in deep that moment, but I'm not really using that thought anymore. It's okay to let it go. If it's that special, meaning and reason will give rise to that thought again if you need it, but you don't have to go on a campaign with it. Get rid of it.
Let me ask you a question here. Because as we grow, we learn. We are students of life, and we're constantly learning more.
Ideally, yes.
Do you? Yeah, ideally. Excellent disclaimer. Is it important when we learn something new that we would have previously challenged as implausible, impractical, impossible, nonsensical? Is it important for us to go back and tell them, like, oh my goodness? I mean, is there value in that? You know, in acknowledging a posture we took with somebody when we later, through a different window of time, discovered they were actually right.
If I think there's a shelf life to that, because I've actually done that, where somebody says something and they did not even quite finish their thought before they finished. I'm like, oh, no. You know, I'm already like, that's just not true. Sorry. And a lot of times we will say that, and then you know what follows? We go do the research after we already spoke in confidence, right? And I've
so
actually
true.
no, it's so, or else we a certain group says something and we don't respond what is in our heart because we're like, let me see what my people think of this first before I go, and it's the same thing when we don't know who's right or wrong because we have to verify it. But I've actually done this where I've told somebody like, that doesn't even make sense. That's so wrong. Or like, no, I don't know why I'm being corrective. Research follows my correction. And then I need to just go back and be like, hey, what I said yesterday, you were right. I looked it up and what you said is right. I have to rethink this. But I mean, if 10 years of hard living proves somebody's point, I don't know if I would spend another 10 retracing the steps back to them.
Tracking them down.
Yeah. Like, especially if it's somebody that you easily fall in love with. I don't know if I'd want to revisit that. I'm joking, but not. But yeah. You know what I'm saying though?
No,
not the in love part, but the rest of it.
Wow. Okay. You're right.
So
What an interesting topic, right? You know what? You should put a little something in your pocket so that we remember this, because somehow this death cleaning makes so much more sense when my wife talks about it. She gets it.
Yes. Actually, we had wanted to talk about this. I was talking to Joanne about it, and I think you were in the background saying, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. And she had remembered that I told her, because I really am drawn to this idea of not giving people undue weight. And, I would say this, when we've changed.
What do you mean? What do you mean undue weight?
Undue weight because of things we hold in our heart. If we have a strong dislike for somebody and we've grown up, I would not want my life to pass without clarifying to them, like, I had no real reason to feel like that about you, and I'm sorry. That's it. No, we're not going to enter into a new relationship, but I just want you to know that. Because would you want somebody to read in the paper and remain troubled or in some kind of weird, dark mystery about why you didn't care for them if it wasn't a big deal? Another thing is, if we've preached something to our kids and then we learn better, clean that up. Because you're leaving that memento with your kids. And they need to decide, do I keep it? Because my mom always said this. Do I hang on to it?
What a tremendous responsibility, because...
Well, not every, it doesn't have to be exhaustive, but somewhat. How many things has our mom said to you or me that just stung? And it would not have been a terrible thing for her to retract, because we're left with this possession. Do I want to hold on to this? Do I want to believe if your mom has said you're lazy, you're no good, but do you want to say, I want to hold on to that she thought that? Do I want to hold on to feeling this way about myself, or do I let go of it? A parent could relieve their kids of that by clarifying, I acted just like a monster when I was upset with other things. You were always good, or you were mostly good, whatever it is.
First, I have to ask, did she say things? First, I have to ask, did she say things that didn't sting?
No, that's what I'm saying. But it would have gone a long ways for us to not have to sort through what she did not.
For sure.
And so I'm saying, whether or not she could, it's not for me to judge. But having known what it feels like, it's something I would want to do for my child, is to relieve them of anything like that. Right?
For sure.
Like if there's anything that we repeatedly pressure a child about, but we don't want them to carry that feeling about themselves, we should let them know that I gave you this, but I want you to know I trust you. You don't have to keep this thing I gave you, because you're like, oh, I mean, how many of us are like, oh, I have this really ugly collection of knickknacks, but I don't toss them because they were a gift. It's the same idea. My mom gave me these words, this disposition about, or this image of myself So we give our kids permission. I gave it to you because that's just how I am, and I'm not perfect. If it doesn't match the decor of your heart, toss it, please. I want to give you the freedom to do that. That's a lot, right? But it's a true
Wow.
thing. Yeah, it starts to sound trippy at some point, but I think there is something to it. Truly, Leroy.
I think I'm going to stick with if there's no mental nutrition, purge it.
Watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that.
I like that. I like
Simple.
that. That's easy for me to grasp.
Kiss, keep it super simple. I was going to say keep it stupid simple, but I said I purged that. So keep it super simple. Kiss.
Keep it semi-simple.
Yeah, keep it semi simple. If it doesn't feed something, don't keep it. And don't
Right.
encourage your kids that your word is as good as God's. They should keep everything you said. Let them let go if they choose to.
I love it. And now everybody who's listening, oh my goodness, you guys are in for a treat next week. Next week, Lori has prepared for us, I mean, an impossibly rejoiceful topic. You guys are going to be so excited. So, with that, I mean, my goodness, keep the contributions coming, not financial contributions, the input. We love it. We appreciate it. We value it. And we want to read more of it.
Yeah.
So, comment, keep sending those private messages on Facebook, and like, share always.
Until next time, guys, farewell.
Adios.